Thank you. Of the Comprehensive Plan Oversight Committee meeting. First matter of business is public comment. If there's anyone wishing to speak on any item on today's agenda, please come forward, state your name and address clearly for the public record. Was assigned in no later than 10 a.m. on the day of the meeting. So I think we have Adam Hernandez, who is the only one so far. Now we're on Zoom too, so if anybody's on Zoom, just zoom on in and we'll get you on the program. Right? All right, Adam, go right ahead.
All right, good morning, committee. So today I believe you're talking about non-conforming uses. What I'm commenting on is, of course, support for the transitional zoning in the industrial areas. And then I actually want to present something else to this body that we've kind of figured out since our last meeting. So one of the things you guys all asked for the staff to bring you to the last meeting, which unfortunately wasn't brought, was what does it look like to get rid of these industrial areas next to neighborhoods? One of those things is putting amortization in the UDC. And so luckily for us, we're in the middle of updating this, or actually creating this UDC. If we don't put amortization in there, it does not give the city the option later on to do the other two steps that would be necessary to get this completed. And so I am imploring you all to not let this UDC wrap up without having amortization in there. Now, putting it in there does nothing for the time being. It just gives the city an option. Okay, and so then the other two steps would be approaching the Board of Adjustments and then City Council. But that, again, is not relevant to this body.
Yeah, so my understanding of amortization is that it's this process by which the city would give an existing business a certain amount of time to operate in their location, 30 years, 40 years, whatever, and then at the end of that time they would have to move. Now there could potentially be some financial arrangements where there was some fair market value paid for the business at the end of that time, but I'm not a supporter of that. I've not seen it work well. I'm still looking for examples of in Texas where that has worked on a broad scale. I think about our private property rights. It's the first thing I think about. I think as a business owner, I look at it through the lens of a business owner. There are some businesses in our community that, if we could wave a magic wand, we'd move them somewhere else. But we'd have to move the railroad too. And we often forget about the fact that they developed along the railroad for good reason. So that's where I stand on amortization. I've been upfront about it. We've never talked about it as a council, interestingly enough. It's never even bubbled up to the point where it's been a discussion at a council level. I would assume that some of that was brought up as they went through the planning effort. I don't recall. I tried real hard to let the citizens and the consultants do the work before they brought it to us. But I don't see footing for that or support for that in Lubbock.
Welcome to Coffee with the Mayor. It's good to be at United on Parkway. It's for those of you that have never come to one of these before. It's we do this about once a month, and we spend an hour and we talk about whatever might be on your mind. Okay, let's talk about zoning.
When it comes to infrastructure and zoning, a lot of times people don't come to your businessman. Okay, you learn business to make money. Even though Parkway Trade Point is an opportunity zone, a lot of businesses have not come. Why? Because of industrial zoning. They're not going to want to make money here where there's smoke, right? There's a lot of things that are hazardous to the health and welfare of people who live in this community. Now, when you talk about the city, it's not their job to give businesses. It's not the government's job to give business. But it is, however, in a city's position to change zoning. We can do something called amortization. We can adapt an amortization ordinance, which is not unusual, and I'm sure it's been brought to your table already. That's something we can do as soon as possible. Also, downzoning and rezoning. Those are things that the city has the power to do so that our community can flourish just like every other community. You say, well, what do we want in our community? Whatever you have in your community, sir, that's what we would want. We don't want an industry in our backyard, just like you don't appreciate it. Neither do we. As the demographics and the community change, we would like our community to change as well. So to say that businesses have been here before us, guess what? Things are changing, and they should change too and go away. And there's ways that they can.
Okay, to your zoning question or comment. First of all, I do not support amortization. We've talked about this before. And amortization is this concept that if you're a business owner who's invested in a business, land in a business, that the city comes in and gives you a certain number of years to operate, and then you're going to have to close your.
If they're hazardous to the health and welfare of the community.
But who decides that? I think it's private property rights. Okay? Because they've come in, somebody's built a business based upon a certain set of rules, a certain zoning or whatever. Okay, now, I'm not saying that was right. I'm just saying that's how it was done. Now, I do support.
Well, we definitely want amortization because that's the only way that the zoning can change for those that have been grandfathered in. Well, I mean, we know that that process is quite a lengthy process. That could take anywhere from, who knows, 5, 6, 7, 8 years down the road before anything could actually take place. But at least if there's a mechanism to where we can begin to work with that, to where, these businesses have been approached and this is how this particular type of zoning is going to be phased out. It's time to start looking at where to relocate so that, you're not in this neighborhood or near this neighborhood so that, then we would know that all would be the best outcome. And so that's why we're hoping that this, that we at least start the initial steps to at least get that in there to where we do have an ability to make some changes. I think that's the best thing we can do at this point.
Other cities have, like Dallas has what's called an amortization ordinance, where they have rezoned places that are or can rezone places that are industrial, and for the property owner that has his or her industry there, an appraiser will kind of figure out how long that industry or how long the investment that owner has put into the industry, how long it needs to stay in place before that investment can be recouped. And then after a certain period of time, that industry will have to move once they've recouped their investment. So these kinds of things have happened. And it's not like Lubbock couldn't follow what other cities have done to, make a fairer zoning system.
Let's change those laws. You have the power as a city official to make those changes for our community so that it can flourish just like South and Southwest Lubbock.
I don't.
I can't ask a man to cut his pocket change off.
I don't support amortization.
What would I like to see for the neighborhood? I want it right. If we have a city that said we love you, we love everybody, and we all, let's work together and make it right. I want my 96-year-old mother to be able to sit on the porch, but every time she sits out there, that air comes and she has to inhale something. Let's make things better. I'm for getting things better, having better communication. I want that for the community, a better way, a better quality of life for the way that people in the Dunbar, Manhattan, all East and North Lubbock people have worked for this to be better, too.
I guess I'll wrap up with this. We need to be in a mind frame as a city, and that's the staff, all committees, city council. We need to be in the mind frame that these industrial areas cannot be next to residential. Point blank, period. We have to stop beating around the bush about this, and we have to make up our minds and be very clear and intentional and say, as a city, we are getting rid of this embarrassing situation because it is embarrassing for our city.